Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. How's everyone doing? In today's video, we're diving into another tough match, a real tilter that was challenging on so many levels. I can't sum it up in just one sentence, but trust me, it was also a ride. So, enjoy. To be honest, right from the start, nothing was going according to plan. Riot's recent nerfs have hit us harder than I anticipated. I initially thought the nerfs would only be noticeable in specific matchups, but it turns out they've made nearly every matchup more challenging. The biggest blow? Our clear speed no longer lines up with the first scuttle crab spawn. Not only do I lack the skill to do the fastest clear on Volibear, but adding those extra seconds to my clear has had a huge impact. Looks like it's time to head back into the practice tool and rework our jungle clear timing. Now you might be wondering what we're doing on bot side. Well, first off, our Skarner has been dying left and right with no real reason, and it's somehow evolved into him being flamed by the ADC flaming while flaming the midliner. A collective flame to be fair, since we also will join the bandwagon, not exactly a morale booster. Plus, I knew from the start that this would be a rough game, so I was aiming to secure some solid gold here to catch up. I initially came down looking to counter a potential gank from Shaco, but it turned out our gank worked out even better than expected. We didn't get as much out of it as I'd hoped though. The plan was to get the double kill, shove the wave into the tower, back, spend our gold, and be in a stronger position for the next dragon fight. Another thing I aimed for in this game was grabbing the grubs. Since the enemy team have a lot of split-pushing threats, denying them the Herald and grubs would be more beneficial to us than just trading with drakes. And as they say, the grubs fights are the true test in any game. If your team can respond to you, I mean the solo laners plus the support, it's a sign they're at least somewhat competent. If the fight over Herald goes poorly, well, then you're probably matched with a very special group of players. In this case, I can tell you Skarner means well. He just doesn't know how to play the game. But Yone, that guy is a different story. He's a selfish, narcissistic player who lost his lane, got destroyed in multiple duels, and now just wants to execute the game. How do I know all this? Because he left us mid-fight, when he was full health, just to go farm the mid-wave. Ever seen someone pull a move like that? Only a player with zero regard for the team would jump in, pretend to help, and then bail when it actually matters. It would have been better if he didn't show up at all instead of faking support and ditching. At this point, I was just hoping to grab at least one grub to deny it to the enemy, but honestly, I was pushing it way too hard. Let me share a thought I always have in situations like this. I'd rather have a feeding bot lane than struggling solo laners, at least with a rough bot lane. I'm familiar with the playbook. I know how to stay calm, pick my spots, and look for openings as the game drags on. But when both solo lanes are losing, that's a whole other problem. A weak solo laner means you're dealing with someone who's going to be behind the entire game. There's rarely a turnaround unless we're talking about specific top laners. In this game, our solo laners just can't split push, and they're not even positioning smartly. They're just aimlessly pushing up, dying in awkward spots, and we have nothing to work with. Now our build is a bit awkward, and that build symbolizes an idea. And you can't nerf an idea. It's not viable in every scenario you can imagine. It represents a future possibility, a hope that will reach the mid-game, because right now, our team is dog shit, unable to accomplish anything meaningful, and by some insane luck, the stats we have in this fight are just enough to survive the enemy's damage output. On the other hand, if you calculate the total gold we have in this situation, it's around 3,000 gold. With that, I could grab another completed item to make us more useful, but I believe raw HP is crucial when losing early. It gives Volibear everything, more bite damage since we're maxing it, and more survivability because it's hard to tell exactly who's fed on the enemy team. HP will help across the board. Plus, we're banking on conditioning, which means we'll get extra armor and magic resist after 12 minutes. It's a gamble, sure, but it's like I'm forcing myself into a situation where I'm turning this loss into a constructive process towards success. As messed up as it sounds, based on previous games, this feels like the best way to be ready for anything. So far, this game has been a disaster. I honestly have no clue how to win it. But there's one thing we've managed from the start until now. We got 2 drakes. This third one is crucial, because if we secure it, the next will be soul. That's the only real leverage we have as a team, our insurance. Getting this soul isn't just about winning, it's about preventing the enemy team from winning. And so, here we are at the decisive call of the game, the third drake. Skarner didn't care. Mid died instantly, and the usual happens next. The bot side duo starts up the mental warfare. It's the echo chamber effect. 2 players on comms, playing in the same awful way, try to convince everyone to forfeit. But unfortunately for them, that's never going to work on this bear. At the end of the day, my calls might be bad, but they're still better than whatever they're bringing to the table. Like the best version of the Joker said, it's better to have a bad plan than no plan at all. Finally, the moment of truth. Remember that useless Skarner player with the good heart? Well, we've found him a new purpose. Vex can kill everyone on the enemy team, but the one person she can't kill is this Skarner. If he can keep her at bay, he'll become the most useful player, despite all his disadvantages. Bad calls and lack of farm, unless he dies randomly while hitting auto attacks. Of course, the enemy team doesn't know, and bot side are spamming. Plus, our mid laner isn't even in the game. So what do you do when life gives you lemons? You make lemonade. Right now, the only thing we can do is create space for this player to split push, challenge, and keep Vex distracted, while we either try to open up a path through mid or secure Baron. This is going to be tough. What we're looking for here is to win against all odds. Let me tell you one thing. If you play a game and win from the start without any challenges, that's a boring game. But imagine the opposite. You play an impossible game, everything is stacked against you. And then, against all odds, you pull off this crazy call. Even though you're still losing, you've created a potential path to victory. Even if it's just for a minute. That minute might not last forever, but it's that moment of hope, of fighting for the impossible, that makes the game fun. Of course, both sides will never know this feeling because they're so influenced by Riot's view that the ADC is the one who should carry in the late game, and that they should get all the gold, experience, and protection. But they forget one thing. Only the worthy deserve that treatment, and not everyone. Now, after trying to finish our first attempt at securing a somewhat mini victory, the enemy team decided to close the game and push us back to where we were before the Drake call. So now we need to regroup and start from scratch. Of course, there's another option. We could have split pushed while the rest of the team stay with Skarner to defend towers. That's a possible solution. But the issue is that Skarner has a better escape plan than we do. Even if he doesn't execute it perfectly, his odds of getting away are much better than mine. Plus, we aren't fully built for split pushing since we don't have Demolish. If you remember our bad call to secure the third Drake earlier, well, now it's the Soul Drake. It seems that the team is finally getting convinced that we can actually win the game. What a bunch of useless pushovers. I hate people who only invest in the game when they see others succeeding. I mean, can't you do some Hanma-style visualization and imagine yourself succeeding, then build on that? Now, for those of you who don't know how powerful this Chemtech Drake is, when we're below 50% HP, it gives us an extra 11% damage and another 11% damage reduction. Do you know how broken that is? Since our plan from the start succeeded in creating the first stepping stone toward winning. It's time to use some deep reinforcement learning to tell these idiots to never question the bear calls if you have nothing to show up for in the early game. Finally, the tilt is starting to affect the enemy team. Riven has been leading the game for the past 20 minutes, and now we are finally doing something useful to secure the win. The funny part is that with all the flaming and FF spamming, the only time the bot side talked to me was when they trash-talked the third Drake call, but since then, they've become very cooperative and team-oriented. I guess sometimes tough love is the way to go. Even though it may look like toxicity, it does the job perfectly. And guess what? We're almost at our first peak. We're about to reach our 3 core items. You see, whenever I get my 3 core items, I become a totally different champion, and all doubts about my gaping potential vanish at that moment in the game. This means that in the upcoming 10 minutes, we will be almost unstoppable until the enemy team fully builds up. One thing this Shaco player doesn't realize is that I used to main Shaco a few seasons back. I know his tricks and options. Sadly, I've always liked Shaco's design, but the issue is that Riot no longer respects the spirit of their original champions, or rather, the vision their predecessors had for the game. Their new approach to champion design feels off, like they're focused on a narrow definition of good champions. That almost always seems to mean a female character or feminized male version of a broken concept. Truly sad times. Now we're hitting our second power spike, solidified by our 3 core items, stacked health and grasp of the Undying. But despite all that, I can't shake the feeling that a single mistake could cost us everything. That's the curse of being a jungler. If you slip up, the game could slip away entirely. Meanwhile, if an ADC or any other teammate messes up, it's survivable. But one misstep here, and it's game over. On a different note, it took us almost 30 minutes just to get the mid tower. If that doesn't scream mid-diff, then I don't know what does. This is exactly the meme. Tell me it's a mid-diff without telling me it's a mid-diff. Like in any tough game, jungle fights are seriously punishing us. We're constantly running into Shaco boxes, while the enemy team has loads of AoE and mobility. I'm convinced that fighting in mid lane is our best chance from now on. But the challenge here is that I can't telepathically communicate this to the team, and spamming pings only goes so far. At this point, pings lose their impact because we're so used to them. They barely mean anything anymore. We need more than just pings. We need a way to type short messages that accompany them. Imagine if I could ping "fight here" with a specific note. When I say "fight here," I mean in this exact location, not in the jungle or at its entrance. I want that clarity in my green ping, an option to customize it with key info, because the second I have to take my hands off the mouse to type in the middle of a fight, I'm probably dead. Having that option would make coordination in critical moments so much smoother. The wildest part of this game? Everyone agreed. No jungle fights. Let's push mid and finish. But of course, Yone kicks off a fight anyway. Support tries to help, and the whole team collapses. The guy who's been dead weight from the start is suddenly making calls, steering us toward victory, and everyone is following him. Feels like it is a parody of the election. This might be the most tilting experience of my life. It's like the whole team got collective memory loss and chucked all our hard work straight into the sewer. Now, thanks to this mess, the enemy team secured Elder Drake. Given their comp, Elder is massive for them. Ironically, it's the Chemtech Soul. Yep, the same one I was flamed for prioritizing earlier. That's keeping us viable. Moving forward, I'm setting a new personal rule. Fight for Chemtech Soul above anything else. This game is the epitome of schizophrenia. Once again, we all agree. No fighting. Let's wait out the Elder buff. And what happens? Another fight starts. Build can stand up against all odds. There's still hope. We lost our carry, and our mid laner is basically a cannon minion on steroids. But sometimes the enemy team has their own setbacks. Their Vayne got caught, balancing out our rough situation. Ironically, the enemy Shaco is a smart player. He picked up Serpent's Fang, but Riven can't handle our massive shield. Against all odds, we survived the Elder Drake fight and held on to our sanity. The strange part is that we're fighting in a tight area, but this time, it's in our own territory, not in their jungle. Shaco didn't have time to set up his boxes, which would have disrupted our engage and given the enemy a way to escape. Instead, we fortified our position at the entrance, using Volibear as a literal door. This was our hold the door moment. This build, I'll admit, is clutch. If you go with it, you're signing up for a wild ride. It's not your standard jungle build, but this build is for a different breed. It's like daring the enemy to hit you, knowing you're built different. I was a bit paranoid, constantly expecting Shaco to pop out of any bush or sneakily send his clone through a box to pull something wild. That's the sad part about League of Legends. Sometimes you end up giving your enemies way more credit than you give yourself, overthinking outcomes that'll never happen. In the end, we got the Baron, and it turns out Tilt is a double-edged sword, hitting both teams unpredictably. All right, here we are, last stand, one final push. The shock after this game is that for 30 minutes, we've been always losing by every metric. In other words, a game destined to lose. But why did we manage to turn it around? First, because a couple of us just didn't give up, me and, surprisingly, our Skarner. Sure, he finally came through with some clutch ultimates, but it was that resilience that kept us in the fight. Second, we prioritized the right objectives. The Chemtech Soul buff is no joke. Finally, our mental fortitude outlasted the enemy weaker minds and the bot side relentless demoralization strat. It's not about avoiding tilt. It's about staying functional, operational, even when you're tilted out of your mind. If you are built differently, you should think differently. With this, my dear viewers, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. And for everyone else, drop a like, leave a comment. I always love hearing from you all. And remember, don't ban the new female Cassante. Let's test that abomination against the bear to see who's stronger. Until the next game, take care and peace.